Progress.
Welcome into the InsideCarolina.com On the Beat Live. I'm your host, Tommy Ashley. That's Gregory Hall. We've got a special guest, and we're always sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Johnny T-Shirt sponsors us, and what does Johnny T-Shirt do? They sell gear, and this time of year, they sell baseball gear. And they've got the fabulous Tar Heel scripted Carolina blue shirts that the baseball team wears. And why am I talking about baseball? Because we've got the head man, Mr. Scott Forbes. How you doing, Scott?
I'm great. I appreciate y'all having me on. It's awesome to be on and excited to be getting ready for this regional.
It is a pleasure to have you, and especially when you've got so much going on. And so we'll get right into it. And I mentioned it just briefly off the air, but I want to ask you on the air is 18-2 start, you're hot. 15-2 close, you're hot. 5-15 in the middle there. It sort of went off the rails. And I've always wanted to know, A, have you ever been a part of anything like that? And B, what changed to make it go south? And then what changed again to make it go back straight up?
Yeah, those are great questions. To answer the first one, 2018, we had a rough start. At one point, I think we might have been 8-8 or 8-9. But we regrouped, and that team made it to Omaha. And that team actually wasn't as talented as the team in 17 that I thought. We had 3 first-round picks, and we didn't make it to Omaha. We got beat by Davidson. So that was a neat year to see that, a little bit less talent. So more has to happen than just have talent. But honestly, I can't remember in all of my years of, nobody really expected much out of us, at least from the rankings and all that stuff to start the season. And all of a sudden we start hot, like you said, and we play really, really well. And our guys are gaining confidence. And I think we're in the top 15 of a lot of polls. And we go to Miami and we get swept, and we were ahead on Sunday, 2-1 with 2 outs, runner on second base and an 0-2 count. They got a hit and they beat us in 14 innings. And really from that stretch to Virginia, we just struggled getting the wins. We were in a lot of those games. You can chalk up probably, if you play 56 regular season games, what we usually play, just in the game of baseball, 5 or 6, you're going to have some tough days, where your pitchers don't pitch good, you don't hit, maybe you make some base running mistakes. But for the most part, when we were in that, what I kept holding on to was, okay, number one, I really like our group. We've got a great group. They work. I think we've got some talent. And I think the biggest problem was the starting pitching. And in baseball, when you don't get quality starts, it's hard to finish games. So we said, okay, the 2 things we've got to get better at some way, shape, or form were really 3 things. We've got to get more starting pitching or deeper. We got to stop making mistakes defensively. And then we've got to cut back on our strikeouts. That's what we talked to our guys about. But we also have to stay positive. We have to stay together. And like Coach Davis said, with the basketball team, the most important thing is that we believe we can do it. And I think this group kept believing. And then you get the exam break. We lose that heartbreaker. We lost the bomb threat game at Louisville, 14 innings. And then Virginia, we score 3 on Saturday to take the lead, and then we lose in extra innings. And that was a gut punch. That was where I was like, okay, our season's either going to go down the drain or these guys are going to maybe find a way. And we didn't react. We didn't respond great on Sunday. They beat us pretty good. We got back, and we had exam break coming, and we played a good Liberty team, and we actually played pretty good. And I was like, okay, maybe this break is coming at a good time, because sometimes, we've had teams here, I'm like, I don't want to break. We're rolling. We need to keep playing. So this team, it kind of hit us at a good time. We beat Liberty. We had that week, and then we won that 10-inning game against Charlotte, which was a big win for us. And I think one of the pivotal things that happened with this team is we won the 2 one-run games at NC State. And even though we didn't play great, I think just learning how to win in those games on the road in a tough environment against one of our rivals definitely gave our guys that confidence back. And personally, I felt like, okay, if we can keep our head above water, we finish at home. And the Hills are good at home. And, I knew Wake was good. I knew Florida State was good. And then that confidence factor kind of flipped. And, the Wilmington canceled the game on us, which looking back on it may not have been a bad thing because we rested some of our pitchers. And then Alberto Osuna, I thought that swing of the bat, the NC State series, Osuna swinging the bat on Thursday night to walk off Florida State. It's like all of a sudden I see this group of guys and they think they can beat anybody, just like right after that swing of the bat. And they've carried it over. So, I have to give a lot of credit to our players believing in us as coaches, preaching, being positive, eliminate the distractions, like Coach Davis said. It doesn't do any good to look back. There's still some things we can do that are in front of us. And then they did it. We did challenge our team and say, hey, we're at the point after this Virginia game where we have to play every game like it's the postseason, because it is. If we don't finish at a really high rate and finish strong, we're not going to get what we want. And sure enough, this group, I told them today, as a matter of fact, I was like, hey, you guys, I just want to thank you, because this has been an unbelievable thing to watch as your head coach, because this team has been, every team's different. Every team has a different identity. But one thing about this team is, from the start of the fall to right now, for the most part, you're dealing with a bunch of young kids that are 18 to 22, 23 years old. We haven't had any problems. They've done a good job in the classroom. They've done a great job off the field in the community. So it's been cool to see.
With your pitching, obviously you got 3 quality starts in the ACC tournament out of Carlson. Obviously what Schaefer did was one of the most incredible performances I've ever seen live. You're shutting out one of the best offenses in the country. What did it take for them to be a part of that surge down the stretch?
Our pitching coach, who I've known from the day, he came here from Liberty, I knew he had it. Coach Gaines is meticulous. He spends a lot of time with those pitchers. And I just, I knew it was just a matter of time before these guys, you would start seeing more of that, because he was on those teams, that went to Omaha 4 years in a row. He stayed and came back because he had Tommy John in 11. But the biggest key was saying, okay, we got to get Carlson and Shea for that 1-2 punch to give us some length. And Carlson did have the blister that popped up at Miami, so that hurt him some. But we knew with Davis Palermo emerging as a legit back-end guy, if we could get the length more and we could eliminate, defensively, you have to make plays too for your pitchers. And if you really break down that stretch, Tommy, we were giving extra outs.
There was some rough fielding.
Yeah, you got to make plays, and you can't give extra outs. And our guys, we spent a lot of time on that and talking about it. But those 2 guys, I thought at the beginning of the season, I thought, okay, these 2 guys are legit ACC starters. They just didn't get off. They even early, when we were 18-2 or whatever we were, they weren't throwing 6 or 7 innings necessarily. So that concerned me a little bit. But obviously, they've saved their best for down the stretch, because they've both been really good.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, Vance was fabulous out of the gate. My son's got his best friends down at Rice. He tore it up to start with, and then he hit a wall. And obviously, these high-level kids play a ton of baseball all throughout high school and play a lot of baseball. But when you get to college, it's different, especially on the D1 level. How much of a factor was that in the swoon? And then as coaches, it's easy to stay positive, right? But it's difficult to have kids that have always had success and then all of a sudden not having success. How tough was it to keep them there, in the moment? You might be 0 for 10 or whatever. You might be struggling. We're going to back you down the lineup. But stay there. Stay with us, and we'll get it. It's sort of like what Hubert Davis did on the basketball side. How is that as a coach? You've been around the game forever. You went from making suggestions to making decisions, like Hubert always likes to say. Explain that process.
Yeah, you look at Vance, and he struck out some in the preseason, and mechanically he had that. It was a tilt of a swing, which he's so athletic and he started so hot. We were like, okay, maybe he can keep that tilt if he gets it done early. But Coach Wierzbicki had repeatedly said, I'm hoping that he can sustain it, because as the pitching gets better and the velocity gets better, you got a little bit of a loop. And sure enough, with our league and the advanced videos, teams figure you out pretty quick. I was a pitching coach for 10 years, and that I'm gonna know who the best hitter is, what his hole is, how we're gonna attack them. So to give Coach Wierzbicki and Vance credit, and I'll answer this in 2 parts. They got back there in the cages and they completely eliminated that tilt. And that's hard to do in the middle of the season. Some kids aren't athletic enough to be able to feel it and adjust it. But Vance did it so fast that we noticed it even in practice. And we were like, people are going to probably think we're crazy, but we're going to move him from the 9-hole to the 4-hole. And I think we did that at NC State just because it looked like to all of us, he's just getting to more pitches. And, you know, he's a special kid too, because he is so coachable. He's not caught up in himself. He's a team guy. He wants to win. So that, and the other part is, you know, I think a big thing that we have to do as coaches, especially in baseball, is drag kids through failure, because it's hard. You know, they're going to fail. And all the eyes are going to go to you too during those tough stretches. And how are you handling them as the head coach? Like, are you saying be positive, but you're not positive and you're pouting and your body language is terrible? And it's hard. Like you said, sometimes it's not easy because you got the inner struggle, because you're like, it's eating you up that you're struggling. But one thing I'll say about Vance is it never affected his defense. And I thought he's played his elite center field and saved us more runs than any. I was shocked he didn't get the defensive player of the year over Usher at Louisville. He's a good player, but I thought Vance was the best center fielder in our conference. But there are a lot of players like that, you know, and then when they go through it, Tommy, they come back stronger. Like Danny went through it last year, and I think that's why Danny's had so much success this year, because they learned how to handle that failure. And in baseball, you just got to go ahead and say, I'm going to fail some, especially as a hitter, because you're going to. But pitchers, they can go through slumps as well, and we went through a little bit of one.
Speaking of Danny, Scott, your leaders, Danny, Zarate, I think you had 11 guys honored at senior day that graduated.
We called it graduation day because they have eligibility left.
Some of them have 2 years, right?
Yeah.
What's their role this week? I mean, Danny's won 2 ACC titles. He's played in regionals. He's played in a super regional in 19, right? What's their role this week on the leadership aspect?
Well, really to communicate with me, and that's my job, to talk to the guys that have been through it too. Like an example is today, like, what have y'all thought about the practices? Has been hot? Are we going short enough? Is everybody feeling good? So you want feedback and you want to listen to your players, but their role too is to tell these young guys like, hey, you're going to have nerves. And I think that was very important. You know, it's such a momentum-based game. And that's why I'm glad we're playing Friday already, coming off Sunday. And it helps, you know, when you play in a big game. I was glad we played NC State because I knew the atmosphere would be legit. And these younger guys that haven't played in it, I mean, the Bosch probably won't be to hold 10,000. But, it's still going to be, it's a regional, your season's on the line. But when you've had guys that have been through it, they can help those guys, just say, hey, here's what it's going to be like. We have to eat at a different place for our pregame meal because of the locker room adjustments and all that stuff. But the other thing their job is to perform. I mean, they know it. Like, hey, like Coach Williams said, he says players got to play. And that's why we are where we are. I mean, Danny Soretti and Angel Zarate have led us in not just on the field. I mean, not just off the field, but also on the field. And so, but some of our other guys that graduated in Davis Palermo and, Brandon Schaefer's a transfer, but he's an older guy. So that's what you have to count on going down the stretch and going into this postseason.
How you mentioned it earlier, and I think it's the ultimate thing, but starting pitching, how important is that in these regionals? I know they're little 4-team tournaments or whatever, and obviously the first 2 games are you win the first 2, you're in catbird seat. Starting pitching for you, what's that mean for you, and what would you like to see this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's the name of the game, and regionals are harder than super regionals, in my opinion. They've always been. Now, you're drawing a super regional. At the end of the day, anybody can win a 3-game series. In that regional, I mean, like you said, you get in the loser's bracket, it's a fight. You get in the winner's bracket, you got a better shot even if you lose that 3rd game. We're going to start Carlson game 1. Max has just been better off shorter rests. And I think that's from him missing most of the season last year. And the fact that we've managed him so well, he's only at 66 or 68 innings. So guys, sometimes this time of year, if they get that long break and they're not plus command, Max has good command, but it's not plus like Schaefer's. The more they can pitch, the better. You would like their rest to be a minimum of 4 and a maximum probably of 5. Those 2 for me. I don't like the 6 or 7. So that was one reason I was so excited he got to start Tuesday and Sunday, because I was really concerned if he only threw Tuesday. If we'd have played Wednesday, Carlson couldn't have started against NC State, and he would have gone 9 days without a start. But we need him to give us a good start. We do feel good about our bullpen now. And the way our pitching's set up now, we don't necessarily need Carlson to go 8 innings because we do feel like Schaefer is our guy that's got a chance to go out there and go 7. So we can manage our bullpen game 1, knowing we may not need as much from them game 2. So really, for me, I just want those guys to do what they've been doing during this stretch and pitch the same way. And I told them today, look what you just did. You played 4 really good teams in the ACC tournament. We just need to have the same approach. Go out there and the guys have done a really good job of being aggressive and not playing on their heels. And I felt like during that stretch, anytime you get a little gun shy, you just kind of, you revert on your heels instead of your toes and go after teams.
I'm going to let Gregory handle the regional preview, but I want to ask you a question as a Carolina guy. Beating NC State in the ACC championship.
And a former NC State guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll pass on that.
Well, who, me? Well, or you? Who was
not me?
Okay. Yeah, that's a hidden pass there, Greg. Come on, man. For our fans and our guys, I try to take. It's hard sometimes because we're all competitive. I'm a competitive guy. And, I was hoping we would play State just because I thought it would be awesome. This is Charlotte. It's going to pack the house. And then you wake up and you're like, okay, here we go. NC State and North Carolina. But yeah, I can't pretend that it wasn't a little more enjoyable.
Yeah, it is. I will admit, I was on a boat out in the ocean somewhere and checked the score on satellite radio and it said 9-1. I turned it off. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to jinx that one.
Well, I appreciate you doing that.
So, yeah.
It's hard to get those last couple out.
Yeah, and I was going to say that, you start getting in the 8th and 9th inning and trying to get those guys out, and all you hear about is Tommy White's coming up and all this. And, yeah, I'm turning that one off. So, I'm glad y'all were able to handle business with this one not watching. Go ahead, Gregory.
Yeah, no doubt.
Scott, before we let you go here, Georgia, VCU, Hofstra. You play Hofstra on Friday. You just said Carlson's got the ball game 1. Just as you've had a couple of days to learn about these teams, what have you seen? What are you expecting out of your team against them? What are you expecting out of them? Obviously, you don't know if you're going to play Georgia or VCU and whatnot, but just what have you seen there?
Well, I reminded our coaches too. I was like, don't cloud your brain too much because I've made that mistake, all those years preparing for regionals and stuff. It's easy to super regionals, one team. So focus on Hofstra. You can put get our numbers and our reports set up however we want, but let's don't spend our time yet on VCU and Georgia until we know who we're going to play, because we'll figure out, even if you go to bed later, you get up early. Now with the video as advanced as it is, you can figure that stuff out pretty quick. So we've been working on Hofstra. The other teams, they're great teams. Obviously, they've got tradition, VCU and Georgia. But Hofstra is, I believe, this is their first NCAA tournament appearance, somebody was telling me, but they're older. And anytime you're playing against a bunch of seniors or grads, they're grown men. Fortunately for us this year, we are playing, besides Vance, we got a couple young guys, but our guys have experience at least. But these guys are, when I say older, 4th or 5th year players. They've got a 14-year major leaguer as their head coach. Everybody I've talked to said that, they're fundamentally sound. They play hard. They're not going to quit. They're scrappy. And that's to be expected. And the great thing about baseball, you guys know, is anything can happen. One guy's on the mound. So, what I explained to our guys is that we're going to have to play well. We're going to have to play with the same focus we did against Clemson, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, NC State for us to have success. So, they're going to be a challenge. They've got some guys that throw a lot of strikes and they're older. They've got some high spin rates analytically. So they're trying to get you to hit fly balls and sit at the top of the zone. But Coach Weirs will have our guys ready. Coach Gaines will have our pitchers ready. My job as the head coach is to learn from my experience. One thing I don't want to happen is these guys, I want them to continue to play aggressive and loose, because you cannot play this game tight. We learned that in 2017. There's one thing I could go back and do, maybe is talk to that team more before, like, okay, here's how it's going to be. Because that team had missed the regionals 2 years in a row. This team, not so much. That's why I thought last year, Greg, it was so important for us to get into the postseason, even though it was on the road, because now you know what it's like. So I'm excited to watch our guys, man. You can tell that they're ready, and I've just tried to keep them fresh and not do too much on the field this week.
Well, Scott, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us, and good luck this weekend.
Yeah, thanks a ton. And just, everybody out there watching, please come wear Carolina blue. We need a home field advantage.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Coach.
Absolutely.
Always good to talk baseball.
Yeah, thank y'all a ton for having me. Y'all have a good night.
Yes, sir.
Take care. We're going to take a short break, come back, InsideCarolina.com, On the Beat Live, Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Johnny T-Shirt, like I said earlier, get your swag, get your baseball swag at Johnny T-Shirt before you head over to the Bosch to see the Tar Heels play Hofstra and then either VCU or Georgia or both in some form over the course of the weekend. We'll be right back after the National guys pay the bills. We're back on the Beat Live. Gregory Hall, Tommy Ashley here. Coach Scott Forbes joined us. Look, I'm going to tell you something, Gregory. We talk a lot of basketball and a lot of football here, but baseball is in my blood, and it always has been. And so it is awesome that you said, let's get Coach Forbes on here and get a chance to talk to him. I could talk that forever. Maybe we'll get him on one day after they win the regional and all that. Look at you.
Got my Tim McCarver bobblehead right above my PC setup.
Oh, man, you are that guy. But I mean, it's interesting to hear him discuss. I mean, they were 18-2, and granted, the level of competition was not good, but they went and tanked.
Well, it was good. They've got one of the best non-conference strength of schedules in the country.
It wasn't ACC good, ACC level good
on non-conference standards. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
And they dominated.
And they go 5-15 over that stretch. And look, I've been around kids enough or young men enough to know that when things aren't going well, it's hard to keep them in it. And he was able to do that, and his coaching staff were able to do it. I did think it was interesting that he mentioned Vance Honeycutt struggles not affecting his defense. And that's huge because we talk about that a ton, more so on the basketball side than on the football side. But if you're not putting the ball in the basket, at least do something else. And we saw what Leaky Black was able to do during the basketball. But the fact that he mentioned that about Honeycutt, I mean, it says it all about how this team was able to survive that. Your thoughts on that? Your thoughts on where they are now? I mean, it's tough to argue with what they've done over the last month. Yeah,
and Scott there mentioned – I keep fixing my hat for some reason. I just noticed that's like the fourth time I've done that. Scott mentioned the pitching, right? And that's kind of where it was pitching, it was defense, and then it was also the timely hitting. But that was really the only issue on the offensive side. The offense has been really steady and consistent most of the year. Now, it's hard to put up 35 runs in 4 games like they did in the ACC tournament. They weren't doing that all year. But they were – I mean, they lost a series at Georgia Tech and they put up 30-plus runs, right? Like, that's an issue. You look at their stats and whatnot comparatively. UNC is I had the pitching stats here. They're 273rd in the country in home runs allowed. Like, they've allowed 75 home runs. Like, that's where the issues were in pitching. And you mentioned Honeycutt. He was slumping, to say the least. Like, he had been a consistent 280 hitter and things like that, and then has just been he dropped all the way down to about 250 or so. But then since in the month of May, I wrote about it the other day. I mean, he had 11 home runs. He was hitting almost 400 to get UNC that boost to move into the 4-hole, and it was just crazy. I mean, the way that they turned it on, and they beat State 2 out of 3, they beat Wake 2 out of 3, then they sweep Florida State and just ride that momentum into this tournament to be a number 10 national seed. And not even that. I mean, they deserved a top 8 seed if you look at their resume. And then Greg wrote about it, and obviously with NC State not even making the tournament, The ACC didn't have nearly as many teams as people thought they would get. They probably should have had at least 10 teams, if not 11. So it's insane, the turnaround and the ability for the coaching staff to understand that this team is good. And it helps that you can look at that 18-2 start and be like, guys, look, we did it. Like, not even that, they started the ACC schedule with a sweep over Pitt, a series win over Duke. And now, granted, Pitt and Duke are not two of the best teams in the conference, but still, like, it's a little bit of confidence there. And then they just flipped a switch and have won 15 of their last 17, and honestly got a pretty good draw in the regional this weekend, which I think should help them. Regionals are tough, but as far as you look across the board, it might be one of the quote-unquote easiest. It's not easy by any means, but one of the best draws for a regional that they could have gotten.
Yeah, like you mentioned, you get one guy hot on the mound for another team. I mean, we've seen it.
Yeah.
It only takes one. What's crazy is you look at a team like Tennessee, they got three. They got three of those guys.
They're a different story.
And they're crazy. But you know, to see the guys get it going. He mentioned that UNC Charlotte game, and I remember paying attention to that on the Gamecast. To win that one, I mean, they took off on May 3rd. And I think, though, beating NC State and that kind of weird series where they played Friday and then finished Sunday, both games, and were able to win that one, like you mentioned, it just sort of took off for them. And also the Liberty game early, because Liberty's beaten them several times.
They beat them this year.
Yeah, and they've always been a pain for them. But anyway, to go into the ACC tournament, and like you said, play loose and do all that, I'll be interested to see if they can put it together in the postseason. It gets tighter and tighter. So we'll see how they do. But Vance Honeycutt, Asuna, all those guys, your guys, Zarate, Soretti, they've all performed, and they've had to. And so what you covered a lot of the baseball. Let me ask you this. What was your moment in the Bosch this year? For me, my lasting memory in the Bosch, and this is why we need to get back there this weekend, is that Georgia Tech game we were sitting in, where they could not throw a strike. And then when they did throw a strike, Georgia Tech hit it in the parking lot. What was yours?
My mind immediately goes to two. Vance Honeycutt's first game was special. I mean, the kid hit 2 home runs in his college debut, and then regardless of the slump in the middle, he's still the first Division I freshman to hit 20-plus home runs and have 20-plus stolen bases since 2011, which is when they changed the bats to these BB Core bats instead of the aluminum alloy. So I think back to that and just being like, man, UNC has got a dude. And it was very obvious that they had some other dudes, and that's why Pat James, who covers the team relentlessly as well, when we kind of talk about how this team turned it around, it was never an issue about – now 15-2 is a different type of turnaround, but it wasn't about whether or not they could be good. It was when they were going to be good, because we knew they were talented. I mean, Asuna's got the power. Vance Honeycutt's got all the tools. Soretti's right. Like, that was obvious. So that's kind of one moment, was that first game. And then the last game, the sweep of Florida State. It's really hard to sweep a team in baseball. I mean, it just is, especially a talent. Now, Pitt ended up in the Final Four of the ACC tournament, but as far as Florida State, like, that game mattered as far as seeding wise, and they just took it to Florida State and got their own, second conference sweep of the season, first since the very first conference series against Pitt. So those two games, and that one against Florida State, was like, this team could do something here heading into the postseason play. And they did. And 4-0, that week in Charlotte was insane. I don't even really remember the Clemson game, just because that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday was just so dominant. And Brandon Schaefer, it wasn't in the Bosch, but just watching that performance, he threw 102 pitches to Virginia Tech, 99 fastballs, Tommy. A college pitcher threw 99 fastballs and allowed 6 hits, struck out 6, and didn't allow a run. You know how hard that is?
Yeah, did that and survived it. I mean, just all about location, all about getting ahead. I mean, look, they got on a roll. They've stayed on a roll. It is, and I mentioned it to him, it is just strange. I don't know if strange is the word or just to see the same type role the basketball team made. And, that he and Coach Davis are good friends, to see them both get it. Because, look, there were people not saying nice things about Scott Forbes when they were struggling. And, we see how it goes. It just takes time to get it going. Let's go. You want to answer this question? Do you want me to take on this question?
Are we going to switch sports?
We can just talk about whatever. This is the open floor stuff. If Ross Martin and Joey Powell want to get in here, they can get in here and join up the show.
Yeah, DM me on Slack.
Yeah, they can if they want to get in. But Meyer going to Illinois instead of coming to Carolina. I mean, is it surprising to me? Is it to you? Not really. Does Carolina need a guy? I felt like Carolina needed an extra body. Can they survive without one? Sure, but Puff and Styles and those guys are going to have to step up and play well. But Meyer going to Illinois, he just did not seem – if he's not coming to Chapel Hill to visit, I just don't see how a kid like that would come to Chapel Hill, period. What do you think?
Yeah, if you're going to choose before a visit, you've got to have a great relationship with the coaching staff. Because if you're not falling in love with the campus, then that's really all that matters. Either that, or just kind of like the vision that you have for what you want out of your role and your playing time. And that obviously he liked it better at Illinois, because it's not like Carolina wasn't saying we want you, right? It's not like that Carolina wasn't courting Meyer. So that's kind of was my takeaway with that. Now, obviously, Nance is going through the draft, and he has until today to withdraw, correct?
He withdrew.
He did withdraw?
Roughly 2 hours ago, Mr. Ben Sherman posted that he withdrew from the draft.
So who knows what happens with that. Now, I'll be honest, I was also doing the whole Meyer and Brady comparison. Now, obviously, they're different players and different shooters and all of that. But at the end of the day, no one could have predicted what Brady did this past year, based on his 3 years or 4 years at Oklahoma. And it kind of would have been the same way with Meyer. Like, I think people would have had these high expectations for him to be one of the guys. And maybe that was something that he didn't want to constantly be compared to. I have no idea. I'm just throwing out ideas here and things that I've thought about. But that could have played a role as well. I have no idea. Or at the end of the day, he liked Illinois. He's at Illinois. He's be wearing, what are they, orange and navy, the Fighting Illini. So Meyer's there, and UNC's still searching.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the deal. Nobody expected what Brady Manick did. But once he did it, everybody expects the next person to do that. And I think that's unrealistic. I mean, Manick was a unicorn that Carolina struck gold on. And when he stood up, it was a UNC Asheville game, and ripped the team.
They beat Asheville. It was either Asheville or App. They beat them, but
played terrible.
It was close there for a little bit, and then they pulled away. And he was like, "We got to beat teams like that way more." Yeah. So. And
for a new guy that hadn't been in the program at all to unload like that in a public forum. Who knows what happened in private? I'm sure it was worse in private, but to do that in a press conference, that told me right there, this dude is different. He has stones that maybe somebody else wouldn't do. And not only that, they listened and they came along eventually and they woke up. And so I just think anybody that comes in, whether it's Nance, whether it's nobody, or whoever, I just think that the expectations are going to be ridiculous.
And I was thinking about that. You bring up an interesting point. What Cam Johnson did as a transfer, now granted he had 2 years, but what he did was phenomenal. And then Justin Pierce and Christian Keeling coming in, I think they had some of those expectations put on them, and they weren't Cam Johnson, which is, no fault of theirs. Cam Johnson is playing legit minutes for the Phoenix Suns in the NBA. Cam Johnson's a really good player. Justin Pierce and Christian Keeling were good players for Carolina. So I think they faced some of those expectations after Cam, and I think fans were like, "Oh, we missed on those guys," when it's really not the case per se. Now, granted, they weren't always excellent, but they were solid players. Um, and then it kind of mitigated those expectations for Brady coming in. People saw what Brady's numbers were. They're like, all right. I mean, I didn't even have Brady starting to start the season in my prediction. Like I was wrong on that. I think a lot of other people were as well. So it just kind of shows that the transfer portal's hit or miss. Now McCoy came along down the stretch there and gave some valuable. They don't win the Baylor game without him, in my opinion. I'm not saying he was the end-all be-all in that game. I mean, you could point to RJ, you could point to Dontrez, like you could point to everyone on the team there. But like you take out McCoy, yeah, he made some mistakes to blow the lead originally, but without him, like they're down another body. So it's hard to predict and project and talk about transfers. And the next guy coming in could be like Cam and Brady, could be like Dawson and Justin that just aren't quite able to get to the level they need to, So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, they, well, Dontrell Styles hit the biggest shot of the year for Carolina. At least to me, Ross Martin calling you out in chat. He won't get in here and talk about it, but he'll call us out in chat. Come on, Ross. You've been wanting to be on the Beat Live. Get in it. But I just think whatever Carolina does, Hubert Davis he had some capital going into last season. He now has a lot more capital going into this season. And to be honest, it's kind of torn to be whether or not you let Puff and Dontrez handle it and you let this team, figure it out with what they have, or you bring in a guy. Chemistry, fit. Chemistry matters. We saw that with Dawson Garcia. Everybody was ecstatic when he got there. Brady Manick didn't need to start. Dawson evidently did. And I'm just pontificating, my favorite word.
It is your favorite word.
It is my favorite word. But when he was not around anymore, Manick was able to do what he did. Christian Keelan and Justin Pierce did as best they could.
That was my point. I wasn't saying they were top 50 players all the time. It's
not their fault that there were not great players. I mean, it's like
I'm not going to sit here and bash them.
Yeah.
I couldn't do what they did, so.
Yeah, and Keeling made some shots late in the season. What's the football question that came in?
I think we need to get into this.
So if they go to the 3-3-5, who are the rivals?
Buck has written a column on this recently, on the whole scratching of divisions. What are your no division thoughts before we get into the 3-3-5? Do you like it? Do you hate it?
I think it makes it tougher to make the ACC championship game for a team like Carolina.
Why?
Because you've got to beat everybody versus just your division.
Yeah.
So you not only have to beat Clemson, you may have to beat Florida State, or you may have to beat Louisville. And I'm not saying beat them because you don't always play them, but you got to be better than them in the standings. Whereas in the Coastal, you could beat everybody and you could get to the, divisions, you could get to the championship game. Now, if you have a year where you don't play a Louisville team and Clemson goes 8-0 in the conference or however many games they're going to play, and then Louisville goes 7-1, and Carolina goes 6-2, but never played Louisville. And Louisville didn't have to play Clemson or something, it opens up a lot of different avenues. That's not really the question the person asked, but I think that non-divisions, not having divisions opens it up for the elite teams to, or the higher, the normal good teams to be even better, because now Florida State doesn't have to beat Clemson to get to the championship game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it works both ways. Somebody asked, who would the rivals be? Well, if it's 3-3-5, I think Duke and State are 100% rivals, but I think it's got to be one of Virginia or Virginia Tech rather than Wake Forest.
Why?
I just think
you don't think they go 3 in State?
No, I don't think so. I'd be interested to see it, but they haven't played Wake other than out of conference for so long. It's almost forgotten. And quite frankly, I don't see the benefit of playing Wake. People talk about the benefit of playing, East Carolina or whatever, I think that's pretty much the same as playing Wake Forest. But I think Duke and State would 100% be in it. Now, the argument is Miami. Is it Miami, the other guy, or the other one on the three? I don't know. What do you think? I think it's Virginia or Virginia Tech.
And it's 3-5-5s. That's what it is. My bad. Because you play the 3 teams every year, and then you play 5, and then you play 5 different teams the next year type deal.
I do like that. I do like being able to play home and away series every 4 years with everybody in the conference.
Because that would be – that's not quite everyone, right? 10 – I guess it is.
You got 14 teams.
Yeah, it is everyone. I think – I mean, it obviously can't be – like Duke has to be a part of it, which is something that I would have no issue not playing Duke every year. I just wouldn't, like the games of, recently, I get it's still UNC Duke, but like if it was State, Wake, and then either of the Virginia teams, and then either of the Miami teams, I think that would be way more interesting, and way more fun to watch, and just I think it would be better for the teams. Now, granted, having Duke right now is kind of like a throwaway game, so I guess for that, it's good.
There is no way in hell.
Someone said State, Miami, UVA. See, I think that would be fantastic every year. Now, UNC, that's going to make it really hard to get to the they play State, Miami, UVA every year right now anyway, but if you
I think it's State, Duke. I think it's State, Duke, and probably Virginia if they do it. There's no way in hell that Carolina plays a football season without playing Duke.
Yeah, I know.
I believe that when I see it. And there's a lot of powerful people that believe the same way. And but who knows? We've seen crazier stuff, but there's no way that Duke is not one of those rivals.
What about 9 conference games like the SEC's thinking about?
Why not?
That's what I think. Why play 4 non-conference games when 2 were against what's this year? Florida A&M and
Georgia State, App.
Yeah.
Notre Dame. Yeah, I'm all for getting rid of
App and Notre Dame is great. If it's App, Notre Dame, and Florida A&M, and then 9 ACC games, heck yeah.
I don't see the point in playing and no disrespect, because there's a lot of Campbell graduates that are Carolina football fans, but I don't see the point for either school playing Campbell.
When do they play Campbell?
A couple of years, I think. They come on the schedule.
Yeah, it's just a payday for Campbell.
Yeah, I don't see the point in playing those type games. 9 ACC games would be fine. I do like playing in a situation where you play everybody home and away every 4 years.
Yep.
Whatever they do, they got to get that done, because it is ridiculous that you don't get to play. When was the last time they played at Clemson?
I was just about to bring that up. I have no idea. I was about to look it up.
Last time I remember, they lost by 100 when Bunning was the coach. I know it's been since then. But just because we talked about it. But, and playing at Florida State.
2011. Oh, no, 2014, Carolina played at Clemson. They lost 50-35.
I remember that. That was Queese.
Actually, 2 of the last 4 games were at Clemson.
Really?
Yeah. But they haven't played in 8 years, and it'll be longer. They're a conference opponent, and you haven't played at their stadium in 8 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's a great place to go see a football game, no matter what people say. It's out in the middle of nowhere, but it is a place to go. Let me look at buck stops here and about expectations. I have to figure out if I'm going to get on this train again this year, because it is June 1st.
So the standard set by the advanced metrics is 8-4.
That's the program.
I know. So it's like, is it going to be better than 8-4? Is it going to be worse than 8-4? Is it going to be 8-4? I have no idea. We still don't know who the quarterback is.
So let's start planning this, and people in the chat can help us out. So we do this over-under show.
Yeah,
we got to do it earlier in August now, since they play in week 0.
We got about a month and a half.
We're going to go over under wins.
Yep.
Are we going to do 8-5 or 8.5, or are we going to do 7.5? Thought. We're going to go.
I think you have to do 7.5. Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe.
they win six. They only won 6 games last year.
Well, look, figure it out.
All right, keep going through your list.
You need to make so Josh Downs. This is tricky on Downs because I had Downs at 1250 last year, and I think I was over, and I think I was right, if I'm not mistaken. Where do we put him this year without
Yeah, you
Sam
were right.
Howell?
He was 1335. Barely right, but you were right.
So where do we put him this year? Is it 1250 again? Or do we drop it down to maybe 1100, given the quarterback situation?
And also more expected production out of other wide receivers. Like, we knew going into the season last year that, now we didn't know to what degree, but we knew it was going to be Josh Downs and then who else, right? But now it's kind of like it's Josh Downs. We've seen, like, we know Bryson Nesbitt is talented. Now, whether or not his production's there, we haven't seen. But it's like,
it's a comfort level too now. You saw one of the best quarterbacks ever to strap it up for Carolina, and he was comfortable with Josh Downs. Now you're going to see one of two quarterbacks that is brand new, fresh, relatively fresh. Are they going to have a comfort level with Downs? Or is he going to be their security blanket like he was Sam Howell's security blanket? Like Zach Pianalto was TJ Yates' security blanket. People.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm coming in, I'm throwing it to the guy that I know is the dude.
I'm throwing it to the guy I know is going to be open every time. And so that'll be interesting. Team sacks or individual sack number leader. Is it over 8.5 or under 8.5? And who is it?
Who's your guy? Who you going with? You told Miles to his face you'd go with him.
I was thinking I might have to go with Miles Murphy. I think Murphy or Ritzy might be the guy. I don't look. Des Evans is finally where he's supposed to be, I guess.
I'm not going to put the pressure on him this year.
Yeah,
I think you heard me a little bit, and I don't want to say I have that kind of power, but I am a proficient jinxer, as they say.
Is Miles Murphy going to be able to play it like he talked it when he talked to us after the spring game? That'll be an interesting thought.
He definitely talked it, and he walked it.
Oh
yeah, at the D.
I don't know if he
walked it last year.
He
in the season, well. He played well.
He played well, but I mean, where are we going to set that line? 8.5, 9.5. Are we going to do a 10 sacks for somebody? Interceptions. This team needs to get in the passing lanes. Tony Grimes, interceptions, over under 5.5. Storm Duck, more or less than Tony Grimes, things like that. So folks need to be thinking about that. I'm going to post on the message board at some point asking for ideas on that. We'd like to have fun with it. I can promise you that there will be no 12-0 prediction this year. at the moment, who knows what Connor Barf's product will say when we get to that show. But
since we've talked about all three programs, baseball with Scott Forbes, which if you're tuning in now or tuned in later, scroll back to the beginning and watch that, and I'll post it separate as well. It was a great interview as they get ready for the regional this weekend. But since we talked about all three programs, if I had asked you in August, right, going back to August, which program is more likely to walk away with an ACC championship, who would you have said?
I mean, I think football is the easy answer.
I would have said football program. Back in August, knowing who was coming in for all the things, I would have said football.
I would have 100% said football.
Yeah, I think I would have done football, baseball, basketball.
How would you have ranked the programs in August, a year ago, going into the season as the best program, the big three
sure.
men's sports? How would you have ranked them? Football, basketball, baseball?
No, football, baseball, basketball.
Really?
Yeah.
And so what were they? Baseball,
basketball, football. Oh no,
You think-
basketball, baseball, football. Baseball. If baseball wins Omaha, then that's how they have to surpass basketball. They have to win Omaha.
Don't they just have to get there?
No, because Omaha's. I mean, that's 8 teams there. You can't. Basketball finished as the number 2 team in the country. They were 4 points away from a national championship.
I'm not convinced that
Just
they were
reaching
that
Omaha,
good.
you think the baseball team beats the
No,
basketball
I
team?
think if they say they get to I think equivalent would maybe get to the championship series.
Yeah, the best of 3. Sure,
Yeah.
because they have an ACC. If they have an ACC title, they're the number. They're a higher seed going into the tournament. Significantly, okay, I could see that.
It is just this team and this program, these programs, and of course, 6 and 7 is not going to cut it for the football team. But for a meltdown in Raleigh, the day after Thanksgiving, this program would have had quite a run through the local schools here, through the state of North Carolina schools, and nationally. If you want to talk about the basketball and the baseball teams, I mean, it's just a crazy year, and certainly when football was struggling, we never thought it would be like that. You know what I mean? We knew that Jen Levy's lacrosse team would run the things and do good things, but we never thought we'd be talking about what we've talked about this year on Inside Carolina.
You know what program, UNC program, did have the best season?
It's got to be women's lacrosse.
Jenny Levy's squad.
Yeah, 22-0.
Did you watch either of their Final
I
Four
saw
games?
the comeback.
The Northwestern? They
I
were
mean,
just replaying it.
How are you down that far and survive and come back and then finish it off? I mean,
It was 14-7.
I think we need to get her on the show, man.
I know that might be that's gonna have to be a next week endeavor.
But yeah, to see them do it, I mean, Carolina fans and the thread on the NC State futility on the message boards is hilarious. What is it? 192 opportunities to win something since 1992, and they've done it 0 times.
Is that the big 3?
The big 3, and that includes divisional, ACC regular season, whatever. They've done it none. And to see what Carolina athletics have been able to do, oftentimes out of the limelight. And it's cool to see the lacrosse team, to see, the field hockey team get a lot of press over the last couple of years, and to see those Courtney Bankhart's team is coming along. So it's been pretty cool. And to see you out there covering the baseball team, to circle this back to where we started on this podcast. Who'd have thought, sitting in that Boschheimer Stadium watching that Georgia Tech game, that this team would be hosting a regional starting on Friday at 2:00. Did not ask him about that. Playing at 2 versus at 7, but
they prefer to play early.
yeah,
because then you get
more rest.
if you lose, you play the early game on Friday. And then if you win, you play the night game, or on Saturday. You play the night game on Saturday. So playing early on Friday is always a go-to. So for people who don't know, UNC plays Hofstra at 2 p.m. on Friday. Hofstra's won 9 straight. They just won their first ever conference title to get their first ever NCAA tournament bid. Tommy, in their their schedule for their tournament was similar to Carolina's. They played 4 games. 3 of them they won via walk-off. And now they're in the tournament, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And then if UNC win or lose, UNC plays the winner or loser of Georgia and VCU. VCU's won 15 straight. Georgia hasn't won a series since April. They lost in the first round of the SEC tournament to Alabama, and they haven't won a series since April. So they're hungry.
Got a fun fact for you.
Go for it.
The one school that bit really hard turning down to go to Carolina for me.
Like when you were deciding where to go to college?
Yep.
Bulldogs?
Georgia.
Are you a Georgia boy?
No, I'm born and bred here. But
That's what
the
I
one
thought.
school that my current rising sophomore at Carolina, the one no, we do not accept. That was the hardest to do before he accepted to Carolina. Georgia. There's always been a place for Georgia for some reason. I don't get it.
My
It's
mom
weird.
hates Georgia.
Well, you're an Auburn person.
I think
so.
she hates Georgia more than she hates Alabama sometimes.
Oh, I thought you were going to say more than likes Auburn. I was going to say, well, that's.
No, she is very, very
Let's
Auburn.
let's get out of here. Let's talk about podcast schedules going forward on InsideCarolina.com. We're going to bring them to you like we always have. We're going coast to coast. Going to still be a thing weekly, hopefully, if not weekly, then every other week. They're great. Joey, Sean, and Sherelle always do a great job with those. It's always a fun listen. Of course, the scoops, whether it's Don Callahan and Ross Martin, won't come on the Beat Live. We beg the guy to come on. He won't get on here. On the Beat Live will be a thing. We'll try to get some special guests, maybe a lacrosse coach in the coming weeks. We'll do some of that. Taylor Viplis in the Players Lounge. They're always cool to learn a little bit more about Carolina players than you might not have known if you didn't listen. Antoine Greens was the most recent. There's another one coming up shortly. And then emergency pods if something big breaks. And as always, Joey and I will try to put together some things over the summer. But stay with us. It's fun to do these podcasts. A lot of people watch, a lot of people listen, and we'd certainly appreciate, especially the Iron. Who are the Iron 65 tonight? Is it 65?
A lot of Sean Crowley's in here. John Lasgrady's in here. We had Douglas Wentz in here. No Slagle tonight.
Yeah.
Noah Asbell, he was in here. He joined us the other week on the fan show.
And we might have to do another one of those. That was pretty cool. So
that was awesome. And if you're a Inside Carolina Premium subscriber, keep your eyes out on the Tar Pit Premium message boards and for whatnot. For a lot of Don's scoops and premium stories coming up. The month of June is pretty crazy as far as recruiting. So keep eyes peeled for who's coming to Chapel Hill, who's visiting, and all of that stuff. It'll be a pretty crazy month with some football recruiting and then baseball as well. So,
yep. And if you're getting ready for Kenan Stadium, Section 209 will be the place to be when it comes into watching the Tar Heels in Kenan starting on August. What is it? FAMU week
August
0,
30th,
whatever it is.
August 30th, maybe.
It's before that, it's like 27th or something. Either way, we're getting out of here. It's been On the Beat Live. Johnny T-Shirt, JohnnyT-Shirt.com. They're great sponsors. Look, go visit them. Go to the Bosch. Go to Chapel Hill this weekend to see the regionals. Go to Johnny T-Shirt. Buy all your gear. Go to the Bosch and watch a game. Come back on Saturday, do the same thing over and over. They've got some great stuff. All the NIL stuff for the players you can get straight from Johnny T-Shirt or Johnny T-Shirt online. And, of course, if you see Gregory covering some baseball games or if you see
hi.
me wandering around, just say hello. It's always fun to talk to you guys. I've met a lot of you guys over the course of the last few years, and it's always fun to talk shop with Inside Carolina's premium subscribers. That'll do us tonight. Thanks, Gregory. It's always a pleasure.